So, after weeks of speculation, and even after meeting with former Vice President Albert Gore, President-elect Donald Trump has chosen Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt to head up the EPA. Pruitt has a long record of action on energy and climate, so we are going to see this global warming is a hoax rhetoric really put to the test, and maybe it'll emerge over the next 4 years. So we haven't seen much of this so far from Scott Pruitt. Some folks on Donald Trump's team are definite climate skeptics. Pruitt hasn't talked too much about the climate science. He's a politician and he's a lawyer from Oklahoma. And a lot of his arguments have been based around saying that the government doesn't, in fact, have the authority to be imposing these climate change rules. Also, Scott Pruitt is focused on the costs of adapting and dealing with climate change, so respecting that to be much more of an argument that I'll have here. So then, specifically, on the Clean Power Plan, we're expecting that Scott Pruitt is going to seek to undo the plan completely. The rule is still pending in federal court, and it's in federal appeals court right now. We could see an opinion come out there pretty much any time about it. Could come before or after Trump's inauguration next year. So legally, that process is going to be playing out for quite some time. The Trump administration itself could decline to defend that rule in court, but meanwhile, the Trump administration is expected to start the rule back as early as January at the EPA. But that would be more of a formal rulemaking process, and that's going to take notice and comment, and it'll take a while for that to go through the process. The endangerment finding remains the real approach, and how would Scott Pruitt navigate the endangerment finding? Pruitt's been pretty critical of the EPA endangerment finding, where the Obama administration put into effect a finding that greenhouse gases threaten public health and welfare. That one decision then triggered the greenhouse gas rules under the Clean Air Act. So they're not really expected to actually roll that back because it would take quite a long time and it would be politically challenging to do so. Meanwhile, what the Pruitt and Trump administration can do is roll back some of the climate rules that Obama has put in place, including the Clean Power Plan. Very few people were really surprised when Trump's pick for administrator came out. Scott Pruitt's name had been in the running since the very beginning, and even before that, even before Trump was elected, folks are really talking about Scott Pruitt. He's been the face of the lawsuit against the Clean Power Plan in different courts, but the left, at least Democrats, are really understandably angry. Scott Pruitt isn't championing any of the things that Democrats would like to see on global warming, so they were really upset on when he was picked. They see it as a sign that Trump plans to follow through with his campaign rhetoric on climate change. And finally, after meeting with Al Gore, Democrats were really disappointed. In the meantime, folks on the right, the GOP is really happy. James Inhofe of Oklahoma is a Scott Pruitt supporter. He's from the same state, and he's happy about that. Industry is also really happy. They see this as a sign that EPA is going to roll back a lot of the onerous major climate change rules. And Senate Democrats have already indicated that they're going to seek to block the nomination. There's a lot of talk among Senate folks, Senate Democrats, that they'd like to stop the Scott Pruitt nomination. But, ultimately, in the end, there's not a whole lot that they can do. The nuclear option that Democrats put in place could be something that was put in place a few years back, that they only need a simple majority to approve nominees. So Democrats can try to slow down the process. They can try to rally the public against Scott Pruitt. But ultimately, Republicans are expected to hold their ranks here, and maybe even a couple of Democrats will leave and support him. So it looks like Scott Pruitt will be running the EPA, and we'll see. Stay tuned.